Hey everybody, hello, Mick Holly, we're live.
Yes. Hey, Mick. We've managed to survive another week. The big thing is for you and I, as long as we're breathing, that's a big success on
Hey,
its
we're
own.
we're we're, we're above ground. We're amazing. We're changing the world one day at a time. It's
There you are.
going to be
I
another.
love it.
It's going to be another great show. And as you saw in the in the rolling credits, we're going to be talking about the three doorways to success. So we like to have a bit of fun with the three doors. So we're going to be talking about how we can help you improve your gross profit, and there'll be some ideas that when we put them forward, you're going to say these guys are crazy. This won't work in my business. Just suspend belief for a minute or two, because these techniques have been employed in many different companies, and we know that they work. So let's have a little bit of fun and get into it. Hey, Andre.
Hey, I like I really love the three doors because the reason why I think it really looks at the traditional approach to how we create wealth and generate profit. This is so traditional in any other business. You look at a distribution business, this is the way that they look at how do we create improvement. But in our industry, it's a little bit different. You know what I mean? So when we talk about the three doors, we got to be able to say to ourselves, okay, how does this apply within our environment?
Right.
And that's what makes it very exciting to me. So yeah, there's a beautiful way of really thinking about improving our business. So as we're doing, hey,
All right.
we're here
Hey, you got control today. You're in charge of our very few visual aids, so we're not going to overwhelm you. I think we've got 4 slides at most, even if we use them all. So it's going to be more of a conversation and a dialogue. Hopefully, you'll get something out of that. So let's bring up the three doors, Andre.
Okay, I'm ready when you are, Mick. There you are. So
here it is. Here it is.
Hey, the three doors. The good thing about these three doors, they all look the same, don't they?
They do, and they represent 3 different strategies for helping you make more, gross profit. And as they read there, you can either sell more, raise prices, or you can reduce your input costs. And just for everybody, this is one of Andre's investment properties, and the reason you can tell is you see up here on the pillar on the right hand side above the cogs door there, you can see a little bottle of beer. That's Andre's little memento from his.
Oh, thank you. My investment property. Anybody that looks at that would say, "Jesus, there's a lot of work that needs to be done there." But anyway,
well, no, you just own 3 doors. That's it.
Right, there you are.
That's the extent of your empire.
Right, that's it.
Let's get into this. Let me just minimize that a little bit so that we. Where are you gone? Where we go? There we are. There we go. Yeah. So
Mick, just to get this sort of going on. Basically, what we're trying to do here is to say, okay, we have a business, right? And normally, our business is based on certain fundamentals, the way that we do things, and what we've noticed that there is many flooring companies that do things slightly differently, and they get actually sometimes substantial different outcomes. So slight differences in terms of the philosophy and the way that they do things, but the outcome is extremely different. And really, when we talk with people, we really try and get to the essence of, first of all, philosophically, what are they doing to improve their business? Because that's what it's about. How do we make our business better is what it's all about, right? And in essence, when we start thinking about business improvement, and really the key thing is, we are not about reducing cost. So we don't believe we can reduce cost and achieve success that way in terms of operating costs. In other words, in terms of just reducing headcount. That's not what we believe in. But we do believe in making our business better, on the gross profit line. And
so Andre, I just wanted to underline that point, because there is a little distinction there, and that is, hey, reducing costs is a legitimate strategy for optimizing your business and for improving your gross profit. As far as Flooring by the Numbers is concerned, Andre and I's business, that's not an area that we focus on. We think there are other levers that we can help you with to get better. But I'm not dissing that strategy. Sometimes it may be very, very apt, but just wanted to not discarding it as an effective strategy. But we know many ways to help you improve your business. In concert with, or before or after you do something with your cost base.
Right. So Mick, first of all, based on this, what we're saying is, number one, if you think about your business as really more just on units, and our units essentially are each job. Remember, we said every job, philosophically, every job is a business. Every job creates profit. Every job creates or absorbs cash, and every job is the basis for how we get our next job. So those are sort of philosophically the three things about every job, right? And so if we think about the unit as being every job, well, we can increase the amount of, let's call it, margin that we create by just selling more jobs. Do you agree? Selling more jobs at the same margin. So we price them the same way we do today, and we just sell more volume, more units of jobs, right? Okay. So that's the one, of course, and that's just a traditional basis to grow, right? And so that's the first area of thought. And normally, if you think about it, the way that we grow today is primarily driven around that strategy. How do we sell more jobs? Now, we could also think about selling more jobs in terms of the average value of a job increases. Well, that will also give us the same outcome. But, it's more about the top line, the volume element, how much more we sell. The second thing is we sell the same amount of units, but our average margin per unit or per job is increased.
Yep.
Right. And that's what we call raise prices. So the average value per job increases. So we are getting more revenue for each job, basically. And that's what we call raise prices. And then, of course, the last strategy is, how do we sell the same number of jobs, but we deliver them more efficiently? So we buy the jobs up, we reduce the actual cost of that job. All right. Now,
so those are the three strategies. And as you are listening to us, which one of those doors would you walk through? Do you think would have the most impact on your business? Have a little bit of a think about that. And
right. So if you're successful on one or two or three, which will give you the best outcome? Right. If you're driving your strategy and you're looking at it and the big thing here, Mick, is you're looking at it independently. All right. So we know that there is, of course, the fourth strategy where we integrate, a combination of things. But just for us to design a way to understand the impact of each one of these strategies. And we will talk more about, how does this really work in a flooring business, but we'll leave that for a little bit later.
And Andre, the where we see the most popular, we talked about this. We've sat in so many budget meetings at the start of the year, and everybody sits down and what are we going to do this year? And the first door they start to knock on, I'm not saying that they go through it, but the first door they knock on is door number one, right? They go, what did we sell last year, and what do we think we can increase on that, right?
Right. So let's just do, we're going to sell 10% more. you know, and then philosophically, that's where the strategy starts. It's that's where the initiation of the strategy starts. Okay, we're going to sell 10% more, right? And unfortunately, the reality is, and here's the thing: when we sell 10% more or 20% or whatever the percentage is, normally it has a whole range of impacts that we really just don't account for. And sometimes that turns out good for us, and sometimes it turns out not so good at all. But absolutely, that is one of the first things that we look at, is because it's easy. It's easier to think that way. Do you know what I mean? Hey, let's just sell more. That's a lot.
And as we said at the start of the show, suspended disbelief a little bit. People look at door number 2 and think these guys are smoking something, because if we try and raise our prices or get our margins that high, we're never going to win any business. And I know a lot of you post this COVID crisis are fighting very competitive battles in the marketplace, and the whole idea of having a higher unit margin is something difficult to conceive. But just hold on to that thought for a moment. Hey, Andre.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's the other thing about this is conviction, Mick. It's an ultimate belief system in the organization. A lot of times, the last thing that people really want to talk about is increasing margin. That's just one of those things that people don't want to really, because they feel that there's going to be a degree of resistance. They feel that it's going to be hard to implement, and they really don't know where to start. And also, what is going to be the consequences? Because they know, one thing they know is, if we stay the same and we just go and deploy strategy 2, in other words, we just go and try and increase margin, we're going to lose a lot of revenue. And that, that's the area that they get a little bit scared about, of course, right. So the resistance towards 2 is great, because they believe the risk is greater than the potential reward. And therefore, we rather just stay away from it, because it's just all too hard. Now, we do get people that really want to look at option 3. There's very few business owners or business managers in our industry that wouldn't say to you, I am absolutely convinced I can get another 1 or 2% out of my cost of goods sold, out of the cost of my materials, my labor, and what we call general conditions, right?
Right. Yeah, and definitely a fertile ground, but sometimes we're too busy to get around to take a disciplined approach to going after it. And there is a lot of money there.
Absolutely. And so here's the thing. Before we go to the next thing, I want to just bring up this slide, because we're going to sort of just swap in and out and have a look at all these different things. Let's just take a very simple example. Now, we know that this example isn't appropriate to our industry. So the gross profits that we're looking at there per $100, I know the industry doesn't deliver $40 of gross profit. I get it. But we use these numbers just because they're easy to, sort of assimilate in your mind, right? So what we said is, let's take our existing business, and our existing business does, let's call it $100. And and hey, you can call this the total business, you can call this one job, it doesn't matter. Our existing business gets the cost of goods sold is $60, and of course generates $40 worth of gross profit. So that is, let's call it the baseline. Hey, Mick.
Right. Yeah.
And the intention of this is, what do we do with our existing business? How do we make that existing picture a more pretty picture? How do we make it a little more better? Well, as we said, there's the 3 doors, right? The option 1 is we just sell more. So let's look at just the mathematical consequence of just selling more. So what we're selling more means we increase our volume by 10%.
Yeah, so we get a big stick, right? And then we beat all the salespeople up and say, go out, make more calls and sell more work. Go on.
Right. So that's exactly it's in other words, it's a number of units. We sell a number of units more, and we sell those units at $110. Now remember, our average gross margin stays the same. So we still want a 40% margin, right? So therefore we sell 110. Our cost of goods goes from $60 to $66 because we just sold more.
Yeah.
So therefore, the gross profit increases from $40 to $44. We've sold additional volume, and we at the same margin. So this is really all about selling the additional volume at the same margin. And you'll see $44 of margin is still 40% of $110. So same margin, right?
Right. Yeah, but a 10% more sales give us a 10% improvement in our overall gross profit.
Correct. So we've actually now the good thing about this, which is so this is one thing, we love growth, don't we, Mick? I mean, we want that. We love the growth. Okay, so this is not about saying, hey, let's not grow, but that strategy on its own delivers what? A 10% improvement in your gross profit. Isn't that right? So we've gone from $40 of gross profit to $44 of gross profit.
Right.
So if we are very successful with that strategy and we manage to sell that additional volume at the same margin, we will improve our gross profit by 10%. Does that make sort of sense to you, Mick?
Yeah, it should do. I wrote it.
Okay, all right.
So you'll see this is one of my charts, and then we're going to get one of Andre's charts later, and that's you'll see the difference. But this one, I understand the math on this one. I'm a very simple person.
Nice, I like that. So then, Mick, we get to this ambiguous raise prices, all right? Which whenever we talk about how do we increase the average selling value of a job, I mean, it's just suddenly that just becomes so hard for people to get their heads around, because of all the reasons that we've just discussed. But if we were to have a strategy that delivered on this capability, right? So now that's no more jobs. We haven't sold additional jobs, same job, but we're selling that same job for $110. Of course, at that point, our cost of goods sold is still $60. It still costs us $60 to deliver that job, right? The materials, labor, and general conditions, $60. Now, the margin on that now goes from being the traditional $40 to $50. So we have now increased our gross profit by 25%. So just think about that relationship. 10% improvement in the amount of that we sell a job for delivers 25% improvement in our margin.
It's pretty sweet.
So, hey, Mick, I mean, you've got to say to yourself, okay, well, guys, what if? What if? Yeah, I love that expression, what if? We got a guy, Gary, if you were ever listening to this, Gary at Occupied Renovations, Gary Self is the chairman of Occupied Renovations. He loves saying, what if? And I love that because, it often says, hey, to us, what if we just entertain the thought? So it's more about just entertain it, think about it.
Right.
And can you imagine if we got that right, Nick, that generates a 25% improvement in our gross profit.
Right.
Right. Now, of course, there's the third strategy, which is really designed around, and I love the strategy too, because I think there's a lot to be said of it. So what we're saying is, if we could sell the job exactly at that $100, but we can get a 10% improvement in our costs. Okay, so our cost would go from the traditional $60 because we buy better, we manage the job better, we do less, jobs that are, that come in at the right margin, etc. We do those things right. We improve that cost of goods sold by 10%. Now that gives us a 15% benefit on our gross profit line.
Right.
So those two strategies on their own. So here's my thing. do I like the growth strategy? Absolutely. So strategy one being we just sell more, hey, is a great thing. But what we often do is we look at that strategy on its own. And, we spend 100% effort on strategy one and very little effort on strategy 2 and 3.
And often, Andre, in executing strategy one, selling more, sometimes in our ambition to meet that bigger number, we kind of started to bid a little bit more aggressively, which means that our price component of the equation is impaired. And what we've really wanted to show you on this slide is really the sensitivity analysis. All right, so a little movement in that achieved, bid price can really outweigh big improvements you've made in selling more or getting, those productivity or sourcing benefits.
Right. And Mick, here's the thing: if we as an industry, when we start looking at our business and we start saying, equating this to value. So here's the thing: why will somebody pay for the same job, right? For the same job, $110 versus paying somebody else $100? Why would they do that? I mean, just if we had to go to a salesperson and say, "Here's a job, but we want to sell it. We want you to sell it for $100." Why would why salesman said, I'd lose every time, wouldn't I?
Well, some of the more enlightened of them would know that they've got go-to people, they've got go-to relationships where they know that they're not going to be duking it out, in that kind of last look price, frenzy at the last minute, in that they've built a very solid relationship, with that customer, and the customer trusts them, and they would be prepared to pay that $110.
So Mick, let me just understand this. So what you're telling me is that for the same job, basically, the same job, somebody might be prepared to pay 110 versus another person that's only prepared to pay 100. Is that what you're telling me?
Yes, I'm saying that.
And is there any way that you can help me? And I know that we're trying to set up the audience here. So guys, we're just trying to set you up here for this. But if you had to tell me, is there any evidence that you could help me say that that's the truth?
Is there any evidence?
Yeah.
Yeah, we know salespeople that do. They don't even think about it. They know that they're going to get a good. And why did they feel that? Because they have an inner conviction that relationship, that customer knows that they can be counted on. They know that they're going to get it done, and that there are going to be fewer problems. And if problems occur, Joe, my guy, he gets it done. That's worth.
Yeah, but and I get that, Mick. But I'm asking for hardcore evidence. Now, Mick, if I had to go to a portfolio of your jobs, would every job, and let's say you're a guy that's delivering on average 23%, right? And I had to go and do a portfolio analysis on all of those jobs, right?
Right.
Would I see that every job is being sold at 23%?
No, I mean there's going to be a additional. I see where you're going now with this, and absolutely, you're going to see some jobs at really much higher margins. So, in fact, that's a conversation we'll often have when people say, "Oh, we'll never win at that margin," and we break down their portfolio, don't we? And you see all of these jobs, and you go, "Ooh, is there a pattern here? What's happening with these? Why is it happening?"
Right. So, and I promise you, this is where these, and suddenly when we take this to people and we start saying, here's your portfolio of work, and you can see that 25 to 30% of your work, you're selling north of 30%. And then there's another sort of 40% you're selling an average of 23, 24%. And then there's another, 20, 30%, whatever, that you're selling for, absolute miserable margins.
Right.
So, you've got these three categories of golden work. Then you've got this, let's call it standard work. And then you've got this bucket of absolute rubbish. And what do? We just when we go down to strategy 1, we just do more of that. That's what we do. And the problem with that strategy is when you do that analysis, which bucket do you think grows the most? The rubbish bucket grows the most,
right?
Because that's the easiest one for them to grow in.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So and at the end of the day, people say, well, geez, I've increased my revenue, my margins have gone down. Why has that happened? Well, that's exactly what's happened. And really, from a dollar viewpoint, the golden bucket, the bucket of jobs that you've been selling, let's call it north of 30%, that stays fairly stable.
Right.
So what's happened with the strategy is we've just grown our business with more rubbish.
And Andre, just for the audience, when we look at any business, we look at it from 5 P's. Number 1, the positioning. What's your value proposition? How are you seen in the market? Number 2 would be the portfolio, which is what is the balance of this? And if you understand that portfolio, then you want to know which good components of that portfolio are growing. So if all the rubbish portfolio is growing, that's a bit of a problem. Just to finish the 5 P's, the next one is people. Do they have the right skills? Are they focused correctly? Process. Do we have good, repeatable, standard processes? And lastly, would be performance management. Are you tracking things? Do you understand? Are you running your business by the numbers? Because we're flooring by the numbers. But the portfolio point there, Andre, of actually looking into your portfolio and understanding where you're able to optimize, right? Strategy number number 2 here, right?
Yeah.
Is that's where you want to be selling, where you can actually get this better type of arrangement. So then you've got that double whammy benefit in the business.
Yeah, and Mick, here's the thing. If you go and unfortunately, our industry is not let's call it a data-friendly industry. That data is something that we don't really see as something that can really help our business, right? So we don't really use data to engineer good thinking and good strategy, whatever words you want to use. It really is irrelevant. But data can be such a great friend to help us know and understand our business. And very seldom do we, if there's one message that I can give to, everybody else, guys, how you look at your portfolios, how you measure what you're doing and the outcomes of that can really help you and direct you to the right place. So even if there's just one thing that you do for us from here, is go to your portfolio and just say, okay, how many jobs am I selling over, I don't know, hey, let's give it 30%. And then how many jobs am I selling between 20 and 30%? And then how many jobs am I selling, less than 30%, less than 20%, pardon me. So when you look at your portfolio in those 3 categories, and you start getting a feel, because one thing I can tell you, Mick, here's what I can tell you, is that if you go to that, the golden segment, the jobs greater than 30%, I promise you're going to find jobs in there that are exactly the same. By nature, by what we've delivered, the type of material, the type of whatever, is exactly the same as jobs that have been sold for, 18%. Exactly the same. No different.
Right.
The customer may be different. Absolutely. That I can say. The customer may be different. The salesperson may be different. Yes. But the type of job, same thing. Exactly the same thing. And then, when you sit down and you say to yourself, okay, hang on, what's going on here? In the same business, I'm busy selling certain type of work for $110 versus, $90 and making so much less margin. So if you can achieve that, why can't you sort of start thinking about a strategy to to do more of the golden segment? And I know it sounds crazy, Mick, but how many people talk that way?
Well, getting people to walk that journey and then experiment with it and then accomplish it, it's a fascinating one, because then people have so much more confidence and conviction to be able to go to their new prospects, with that same belief system that we're really truly adding, a lot of value here, because the distinction is not necessarily the product, the floor itself, but it's that whole experience that you're delivering, is what the customer's paying for, what they're buying.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I think there's two components. If you had to put it this way, in a little bit of a thing, the one thing, of course, is that experience, and the other side of experience is the risk. Where people believe that we will manage their risk in a way that they don't have to worry about it. That's worth money.
It is, and we talked about this. In fact, the flooring component of the overall project might be a very small percentage, 2 to 5% of the overall spend, but it has 80% of the sizzle. So the value of that floor and finish is huge, and your customer wants to know that people are going to get an exemplary, sensory, delightful, functional experience when they walk into that space.
Yeah, and yet, Mick, how seldom do we talk in our business? How seldom do we talk about, if we go to a sales guy and we say to him, "What are you an expert in?" They're going to tell us all the functional things that they know, how a floor should be laid, the different materials, the different this, the different that, all of those functional things. But when do you hear a salesperson say to you, "I'm a risk management expert"?
That's a nice way of. But they're expert problem solvers. They step in, they manage multiple trades. They deal with the communication mishaps. I mean, you. As the flooring contractor, have a pivotal role in that success, and sometimes you don't even realize the value creation of what you do, and you need to own that, internalize it, and then really communicate that with your prospective clients. And when they see that, they believe it, they understand it. They are going to want to partner with you, because that risk is pretty high for them, not just from a project perspective, sometimes from a career perspective. If they get that project wrong, they're not going up in that GC.
Yeah. And so, it's suddenly when the thinking changes, Mick, what do we say? If you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change automatically. And, when you start changing the way that you position yourself as, a risk management expert, that is a very different value proposition. And suddenly, people pay for that. And the confidence in our salespeople, because they don't, they all believe that everybody's giving the same, a degree of benefit to the customer. And they're not.
Yeah.
They
so Andre, in the green part of this slide, the door says raise prices, but it's not really that. It really is improve your value messaging, right? And if we spent more time sitting with our go-to-market people or even our marketing people and think about the message around risk management, problem solving, communication, project management, execution, it would be a very different, more powerful message that's going to help you sell. And I think organizations need to spend more time doing that than relying on, hey, maybe we'll get the last look and we can get this bid over the line.
Yeah, I mean, our view on last look. Last look inevitably means lower price. And I mean, if there's something that really disturbs me when a salesperson tells me, oh, I'm getting the last look, there's only one thing that means is that they're going to price the damn thing lower than everybody else.
Right.
So last look doesn't mean to them is
my other favorite one, Andre, is salespeople will tell me I have a great relationship with my GC. I always get last look.
Right.
That's not a relationship. They've beaten you into submission.
Yes, they know where to get the lowest price. They know exactly they know the right guy to get the lowest price. I mean, so it's just, and I mean, our big encouragement here is that we start really talking about, okay, guys, what is wrong with raising prices? What is wrong with it? What is wrong with our now? Maybe when we do our little estimation spreadsheet in Excel, they all do the damn same thing. They put in they've got their little Excel spreadsheet that they use to price the job. Hey, just put down their margin instead of 20%, 25%, or instead of 25%, put 30%. And here's the other problem with it is that so many of these spreadsheets that people use, and this is one of the key things. I'll tell you something now. If the salesperson didn't know the margin, if they didn't know the margin, how do you think they would price work? What if we had a spreadsheet where you don't know the margin? Because here's my next thing, and I know this sounds absolutely ridiculous, but let me explain this to you. Mick, I promise you now, there are salespeople, and we've even had some blogs and things that they believe if they're getting a certain margin, they're gouging the customer.
Oh yes, yeah, that's another.
So automatically when they see, I've even seen people bid something, and they know that the value of that bid and the damn margin comes up to 38%. And they say, no, we can't charge this. I mean, I've even heard this. We can't charge that.
Right. I mean, Andre, why is it that it's okay, right, for Apple to have a 90% margin on this phone, right?
Right.
And we can't, we balk at having a 30% margin on a floor that represents 80% of the project experience.
So yeah, and but I'll tell you something now. If that same salesperson that I've just discussed, who knows now the margin's 38%, right, suddenly says, I can't sell this project for 38%. If they didn't know that margin, they would have sold that project without even thinking twice.
Right.
Because
it comes to one of those limiting beliefs. We all have these limiting beliefs, and from a sales perspective, if you think 38% gross margin is gouging the customer, that's the wrong mindset. You got to be saying, I'm delivering at least 38% value. In fact, I'm delivering 50% value and feel very comfortable with a much higher number. If you're thinking about the value and you're just not thinking about, trying to defend, a price, you've got to be thinking more value than you do, the cost.
Right. And I think, unfortunately, part of the sort of embedded, I mean, this is systematic throughout the whole organization, is because we all do it the same. And, I must say, Mick, slowly, even my way of thinking is changing. If we priced work based on net profit, then suddenly that whole concept of, I'm gouging the customer would go away real fast. When people realize that same job is giving me, 3% net profit. So I'm getting 3 cents out of the dollar out of this.
Well, that's an interesting point, Andre. And we've talked to, a number of different owners about, how do you pay salespeople? And most people are paid on gross profit, right? And we've talked about paying, salespeople based on operating profit, but people, that's too complicated though. They won't understand it. But hey, if you've got a comment about that, put it in the stream here. What do you think about paying salespeople on operating profit? Would it engender a different behavior? Just a thought to park out there. If you're watching this on the replay, send your comments in. We'd love to hear it.
Well, and look, it does create a degree of complexity. I totally agree with you. But that's part of the problem. The problem is that people have this belief system at a certain margin. I am gouging a customer, and the reality is that I'm hardly making money out of it. So because they don't. Here's the other belief system: if it's not a job cost, it ain't a cost.
Right.
So the cost of commissions, the cost of doing all my estimation, the cost of administering and running my business, that is absolutely irrelevant. And just to prove.
I know you had a chart on this, Andre. So I'm going to bring the screen.
I'm just going to try. I just want to prove a point to you here.
Right.
Just at 2 points, okay, and then we'll think this, because the people was probably by now saying, okay, maybe I'm getting it. But here's the situation. Let's call this one job. One job gets sold for $100,000, right? And it's a 20% margin, right? And we deliver $20,000 gross profit. Same job gets sold for $90,000. It's cost the same, cost of goods sold is the same. Your gross profit is $10,000. So that means we got to sell 2 jobs, right? We got to sell 2 jobs to achieve 2 jobs under the 10% lower. Look at it, $10,000 of margin. 2 of those to make one of the full price. Now that, and hey, for people to drop their pants by, 10% and etc., they don't think about it that hard. And they don't realize that, listen here, I'm going to double my workload every time I reduce my price by a certain component. And not only am I doubling my workload, I'm doubling the whole organizational workload. I've got to bid twice the amount. I've got to have estimation twice the amount. I've got to have, everything else just becomes twice the amount. So let's go back to this, and then we can.
Finally, an Andre slide. Oh, good. Got some numbers here.
All right. Well, this is just.
But hey, guys, I jest. These are real numbers that we've taken. They're anonymized, but these are real metrics, real numbers. These aren't made up for illustration. These are real examples. So. These are real companies. I mean, I've tried to just, if the company is 21 million, I've made it 20 million. But the key metrics are very, very close. 3 different companies, operating in pretty much the same market. So it may be geographically slightly different, but not really significantly. And the customer base fairly similar. Everything else is relatively similar, And there is, sort of a company that's company one, let's call it company one. They do $20 million of revenue. Their average margin comes out to be about 20%. So it's that sort of organization, around about the 19 to 21% type organization. And the only thing I try to do so that made it reasonably comparative is I said, okay, I based the cost of commissions at 23% of the gross profit, just to normalize the comparison. So if and that's why I separated the cost of commission. So making the commission cost 23% of the total gross profit. Okay, so of course, company one pays $920,000 to their salespeople, and their cost of doing business is $2.2 million. So the total cost is, of course, $3.1 million, which is the commission plus the overheads, giving them an average profit of about 4%. So, that let's call it $900,000 worth of profit. Okay. Now, Mick, that is relatively standard. This is what we see that. We see that all the time.
Yeah, I mean, that is very standard. Sometimes those margins might be a little bit better, might be a little bit worse, but that's a very standard picture, right? So now we have another company that's sort of competing, got the same sort of capabilities, but they're doing 18 million. So they're doing a little bit less revenue. And, their sort of approach is, they've got, let's call it, a component of, let's call it, strategic relationships. They've got some. So in other words, if you go to company's 2 portfolio, company's 1 portfolio, their let's call it their golden segment their jobs over 30% might only be 20% of their total portfolio. Whereas in company 2, the golden component is most probably 25 to 30% of their portfolio. Of course, and now when you look at company 3, their golden segment is 40%, 45% of their total portfolio. So you see a very different, now, completely different revenue structures. But just if you could just try and live with me for a second, that $18 million company is generating $900,000. The $20 million company is generating $900,000, and the $15 million company who's focused on door number 2. Okay, so company 3 is very focused on door number 2, and that is price. They are committed to getting the right value component to their customer. Okay, and they generating a little bit over $1 million. So all 3 companies generating from a total dollar viewpoint, right? Fairly similar. I mean, $900 to $1 million. So fairly similar type of profit contribution. But if you're an owner, which one would you rather own?
I like company number 3. The stress level is a lot lower. My machinery isn't working so hard. And I can scale company 3. I can grow company 3.
Yeah, because normally, and absolutely, Mick, because normally in company 3, you're really developing that core capability of dealing with the customer. Creating that value component to the customer, that the customer saying, "Hey, I'm quite happy to pay for that."
Yeah.
And your belief system amongst your salespeople, your belief system amongst pre-construction, all of those belief systems suddenly become very, very different. Then, if you had to go and I promise you now, you had to go and take an interview and take a standard company 1 salesperson, standard company 2 salesperson, standard company 3 salesperson, you would see they would be extremely different. Absolutely. The interview would be a very, very different outcome. Company 1 is guaranteed. 80% of their work, 90% of their work is primarily driven on the bid board. Where company 3 hardly knows what a bid board looks like.
Right.
And yet, profitability is roughly the same. Now, what you'd also notice, this is quite interesting as well. Look at company 3's total cost structures. Company 3's total cost structure is higher than company 2 and 1. Now, there's 2 reasons for it. Number 1, of course, they're paying more commission. So if I'm a sales guy, which company would I rather be part of?
Hey, I want to go and interview at company 3.
Man, I'm quoting so much less work. I'm spending. You remember, what was your stat, Mick, on how much time a salesperson actually spends with their customer?
So we know that commercial sales are, complex. There are many, many roles that you need to play in order to get that deal over the line, delivered, closed out, and collect the money, and hopefully then get referrals. But our survey of commercial salespeople is that only 6% of their time are they prospecting for new business.
Right, 6%. So if you can improve that or double that to 12%, I mean, first of all, 12% is if you really think about it from a sales activity, I mean, even that feels just anecdotally, is that the right word, Mick?
Yeah, anecdotally, yes.
Right, okay, I'm getting so tongue twisted. But that already feels just low. I mean, 10%, 12% of your time you're spending with your customer. I mean, really? But if the average is 6 and you're spending 12, you're already doubling that. And how do you double it? Well, you're just doing less work that's of better quality.
Right.
It doesn't mean that the actual job is more.
Such an important point, Andre. When we talk to and that number, let's not take that number out of context. It's not saying that salespeople aren't busy. They're very, very busy. they're busy with all of this other stuff of working the bid process, of going through last look and putting another iteration and another iteration. Well, if I've got fewer of those and, I'm sealing that deal, more quickly up front, I'll be spending less time with all of the detailed machinery of, working those bids over and over and only winning a small percentage. If I'm winning a larger percentage of fewer deals, I've got more time. Now I can go out and actually go and solicit more work. So that's the equation.
Mick, I'm not going to put this on a slide, but just to sort of give you some sort of idea of a little bit about, volumes and all the rest of it. Company One, I mean, it really has, the sort of groupings that we've created through our research. Really, they sort of have an average conversion rate of about 13%.
How many percent?
13.
13, yeah.
Yeah. So for every dollar that they bid, they win 13% ultimately, right? Okay. And company Three has 25% conversion rate.
Nice. Yeah.
So really, that is, so you just should sort of see. Now, company One has to bid 153 million, roughly. Let's call it 100 or so. Let's call it $150 million to get its $20 million worth of revenue. Company Three has to bid $60 million. So, you look at now they're all earning the same amount of profit, Mick, all earning the same amount of profit, and no difference. All right. But what that means is, if you think about it, that, company One is bidding about 2,100 jobs. Company Three is bidding about 1,200 jobs.
That's a big difference.
So now, do you agree with me that I can spend more time with my customer?
Absolutely.
Just by those statistics. In theory, if I'm bidding 2,200 jobs versus 1,200 jobs, do you agree that I could spend 50% more of my time with the customer?
Absolutely.
Exactly right. And you know what that.
And sorry, I didn't want to cut you off there, but I do have a point I'll add when you finish.
but Mick, if you think about that, because here's the problem: if we don't change workload, we can't change outcome. Do you know what I mean? So we can't say to a salesperson, "You need to spend more than 6% of your time with the customer." Can't do that.
Can't. Their day's full.
Yeah, I mean, so because I've tested that already, Mick. I've asked I've asked salespeople listening. I want you to spend, okay, at the moment you're spending whatever we do that research for every. Okay, so you hey Joey, you spending at the moment, it looks like it's about 8% of your time with the customer. I want you to spend 12% of your time. Increase about 30%. So what do you think Joey says to me? He says, I'm going to do that.
Oh no!
I don't know, Joey. Work harder.
Or no, COVID. The customers won't meet with me. Of course, they'll meet with you.
Oh man, let's not go.
Let's not go that way.
Use the word COVID, but unless we can say to Joey, "Hey, Joey, listen here, mate. What if we reduce the number of bids that you're going to have, right? So here's the thing, Mick. I've never heard one CEO. So listen here, all you bloody CEOs out there, listen to me. Never heard one CEO say, I'm going to restrict the number of bids that each salesperson can do. Never heard it. Never heard it. The last thing they would ever do is say something like that. Well, just think about it. If you had I know I'm going into such dangerous territory here, but you think about it. If you had to restrict the number of bids, then therefore, what's the salesperson going to do? To make my money, I've got to convert this stuff.
Right.
Okay. So now suddenly these bids become important, right? I'm going to start following up. I'm going to start doing the right work in order to convert my bucket of bids. I'm not allowed to bid more than 1,200 bids. You see, at the moment, they can bid as many as they like. So you create as much work as you like, create as much disruption as you like. Hey, just create as much drama as you like.
Oh, right? Salespeople like drama.
I mean, oh man, how many times have I heard? So we try to have a meeting. Oh, couldn't have the meeting. What was I doing, Mick? Oh, I'm busy preparing that bid. You know, so
I can't come to the planning meeting because I'm reacting to this fire that I've started.
Right, you know, I'm bidding shit. You know what I mean? And I mean, no, you know, and that's the problem, that we get into the spiral. I can promise you, if you go to a salesperson, and I've tested this, Nick. You said to a salesperson, I'm not going to allow you to bid more than, you know, 200 jobs. What are you going to do now? I promise you, they're going to be so selective on who they're going to be bid to, right? I promise you, they're going to be very, very conscious on every bid that they put in there. They're going to look after that bid like gold, because and suddenly you get a whole different set of behavior. Now, have we had anybody that's been bold enough to do that? No, not yet.
Right.
But I can tell you, I guarantee you.
But seriously, so, you know, in terms of those 3 doors, all 3 strategies are effective. Think about, hopefully we've shown you the sensitivity around, you know, articulating your value, getting the maximum, you know, price for the value that you're actually delivering, and use those strategies intelligently. And if you want help, you know, we've moved the dial on all of those for our flooring company clients. If you need any help in those dimensions, you can chat with us. We'd love to talk to you about it. So it's been fun today, Andre.
Yeah. Okay. So last challenge. All right. To anybody that's, here's what I'm prepared to do. You send me the portfolio of your jobs, right? You send me the portfolio just in a normal, just straight CSV file. You send me that portfolio. Take away the customer. Just call it, as long as, just call it customer 1, customer 2, customer 3. Just, you know, I don't want to know your customer. But if you can send that to me, and, you know, all I need to know is the bid value and the margin. All right. You send that to me, and I can promise you, I will show you gold. So that's your challenge to you. Yeah, Mick, I think we've, you know.
So I put your email up here, Andre, AGIEN, Andre Jean at gfbridge.com. If you want to send your portfolio, your anonymized portfolio, and Andre will tell you how much gold is in your business. You'll be surprised. So do take advantage. Do take advantage of that.
Yeah, it's not going to cost you anything. I will, you know, with Mick, of course. We'll sit down for half an hour with you, and we'll show you that you're missing out on a lot. Just one indication. You try that. See what happens.
All right, Andre. Once again, the hour has gone by very, very quickly. Thanks to all of our guests who have joined us. Thank you for anybody that joined on the replay. As I said, if you want to connect with us and do that exercise, love to do that for you. But make sure you tune in next week and every week.
Lovely, Mick. Cheers, guys. Thank you. All the best.